Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I am here on a Monday today because I wanted to share some information with you that I was sharing last week with my community in Instagram. And last week, I had shared something else. In here, I wanted to talk about Cinco de Mayo last week so that you guys were ready for Cinco de Mayo this week. And I said, okay, I'll swap it. I'll talk to my Facebook community about Cinco de Mayo. And I did that last week. And by the way, if you did not get a hold of those free Cinco de Mayo resources, please leave me a comment and let me know that you want those resources. They're completely free that I shared last week. And as a matter of fact, if you are subscribed to my email tonight, I will be scheduling an email to go out tomorrow morning that has even more additional listening comprehension resources about Cinco de Mayo. So if you are already subscribed in my email, just make sure you check your email tomorrow. And if you're not, leave me a message and I will make sure you get on that email so that you can receive those goodies tomorrow. So that's what I shared last week. But this week, I wanted to share about feedback because feedback is something that I see a lot of teachers struggle with. And many of the people who have joined my Facebook communities and many presentations and conversations I've had with teachers, it's so hard to grade, it's so hard to give feedback. And through a lot of reflections on that and through my own journey, I have managed to find ways to provide very effective feedback. I'm not going to claim to you that my grading system is perfect and I got the ultimate thing going on, because that's a lie. I have limitations at my school. At my school, I cannot mess with the 40%. I cannot mess with that. Even though I have tried to stay within those ranges, they don't even let me do subgroups or anything. So I'm not happy with my grading system, but I can't mess with it. That's just the way it is at my district. However, we're not talking about here about grading. We're talking about here about feedback. Feedback is actually very exciting to me because it is absolutely it can build our students, and feedback comes in many ways, shapes, and form. And today I am actually streaming, and I am hoping that I am streaming in both groups because I've scheduled this to be in my Facebook community and with transformation through acquisition driven instruction. And I also schedule it for it to be in my Jamboard for World Language Teacher community because many of the resources I will be talking about in here are also in Jamboard. Not only on Jamboard, they're also on Google. So if you're not a Jamboard user, no worries, I got you. But that's why I booked the session tonight for both communities. So let me know who is here. I want to see. Please let me know in the chat. Say hello. Tell me where you're logging in from, and tell me if you have what are some of your struggles with feedback. I know that for me, I did not always care about it. And when I started caring about it, I told myself all of these things. For example, one of the biggest struggles that people have, and it's a legitimate struggle, is that they have way too many students to be able to give feedback to each one of them. The other lie I told myself, and actually it was not a lie, but it was more of something that I had control of, and I just didn't realize it when it came to providing students with feedback. The other thing was that I thought that my students wouldn't care for feedback because many times I spent hours writing feedback on their papers, give it to them, and then they just did this, And because of that, I was like, okay, forget it. I'm not even going to try giving them feedback. So that was another thing. And finally, so many other things. I did not know how to give good feedback. So I had to educate myself on that. And I'm still working on that. I'm still not the best at feedback, but I feel pretty confident about it. So I'm going to share with you what I have learned through getting coaching myself from other wonderful educators, from reading. So that's why I created these communities, and that's why I'm so happy to share with you. If I can save you, I always say, if I can save you time, a headache, or a heartache, I'm always a happy person. That is a blessing to me to know that in some way I am helping you out. So let's talk about feedback. Let me make sure I share my screen, and hopefully this is gonna work. And I'm not even quite sure if I am on both of my communities. I'm gonna check on that right now. Let me make sure I check on that. Okay, am I on this community? Yes, I am on my transformation. Check. Let me make sure I am on my Jamboard community because I don't want to leave my Jamboard people out of this. I'm checking. Okay, I can't find my, here we go. Am I inside the Jamboard? Yes, it's working. I am talking to both communities. So yes, if you have any questions, I may not get to see them on the chat right away. That is my biggest worry. And I really want to be able to serve you the best that I can if I have questions, if you have questions. So yes, so let's talk about feedback, and let me share my screen real quick. So we're gonna start with this one. This is what I share with my community in Instagram that I'm going to now share with you. So if you were there inside that community, then you already know kind of what I'm going to say. So we're going to start by talking about what is feedback, okay? What is feedback in our classes? Well, feedback is when we communicate with our students about their performance in a way that they understand it, because if they don't understand it, then it's useless. Doesn't matter how long you wrote, what you wrote all over the essay. If they don't understand what you're trying to say, that they did well or what they need to improve upon, it's pretty much not very useful to them, and you just wasted your time. They need to be able to understand it. And then we also want to let them know what can they apply to do much better next time. And then we also want to make sure that feedback is given to them as soon as possible. Okay, let me check on something. Just want to check on something. Yes, okay. My screen is working great. Yay. All right, so that's what feedback is. Now, we want to make sure we give students feedback inside our world language classes because we want to make sure we guide our students to the next level of performance. And we know that eventually through performance comes the proficiency. It's a continuum, okay? Number two, we are going to make sure that our feedback is provided in different forms. Or feedback could be verbally in the classroom. When I was in the classroom with all of my students, my feedback was verbal most of the time during the class session. We get into this idea that feedback is only written and feedback is only individual. Feedback can be verbal and it can happen throughout every class period. Just like how we're trying to integrate comprehensible input in our classrooms. Okay, not because you consider yourself a full CI teacher or not. That's not what I'm talking about here. Comprehensible input is part of one of ACTFL's core practices. So if you're going to be more intentional integrating comprehensible input in your classroom, it's kind of like the same principle. You want to be intentional, making sure that feedback is embedded in your learning experience every day, if possible. Okay, and there are ways to do that, and I'm going to share with you some ways to do that. Number three, feedback should be timely, ongoing, and focused. So timely, meaning that we're not going to take 2 weeks to give the paper back. Okay, guilty many times. Guilty as charged to this day sometimes. When we take forever to give feedback, it's not as important. It doesn't have the same effect. That's just the research. We want to make sure that the feedback is happening all the time. I already mentioned that. And it's better if you focus it on certain areas, because if you write a paper, if your student writes a document, especially for upper level classes, but for Spanish 1 classes should also have narratives, also have comparisons to write. They can also write a paragraph or two. And even it doesn't matter what's the level of the class. You want to make sure that if you're going to invite feedback, it's going to be focused. It's going to be something focused, because if you give them a ton of things to, oh, you did this great. Okay, this element, you combine sentences, or you need to integrate more transitional phrases, or you need to expand on the vocabulary from the unit, whatever the feedback it's going to be. If you give it too much, they're going to be like, whoa, no. Okay, if you give it 2 pieces that are going to be strong, they're going to focus on that. And then next time you can give another set of feedback actions so that they can focus on that. That's much better than giving them 10 different pointers and then they're going to be like, forget it, teacher. I can't keep up with all this. Okay, number 4, feedback is actionable. That means that when they read it, they can take action from what you said. Good job is not actionable. Good job is not good feedback. Okay, great job in your writing, that's also not actionable, and that's also not good feedback. That's just, a praise, but that's useless to the student, other than to, maybe it makes them feel good. But why was it so good? What made it so great? What did they do that made it stand out? So let's think about that when we provide feedback and comments to our students. Also, it is as student-centered as much as possible. Now, this is my favorite part, okay? The reason why teachers get so tired of giving feedback is because they want to give all the feedback, and it doesn't have to be like that. You can coach your students to give each other amazing feedback. You totally can, okay? Now, I am not the know-it-all over here. I am a teacher just like you, educating myself to be a better teacher for my students. You're like, where did I learn all of this? Well, I learned it from a friend of mine, and that I talk to a lot. And then I also learned it mainly from ACFL. Okay, and the books, they have several books that I have purchased where I've learned about feedback from their books. And also I have paid for coaching myself to get coached in specific areas that sometimes I want to get better at. So now I am transferring that knowledge to you. So this is what feedback is all about. And of course, there's more. There's a lot more. But this is the practical. Let's get straight to business. So we want to make sure we can give feedback in a formative way. It's happening throughout the entire lesson. Of course, we want to give feedback after the summative. And we want to make sure we open space for reflective feedback, where the students are reflecting on their work themselves. We also want to give teacher-led feedback and also student-led feedback. Now, all of these, reflective feedback and student-led feedback, these two are your best friends. If you think like me back in the day, oh my God, I have so many students, I cannot give feedback, these two strategies are going to save you a lot of time. And I'm so happy to be sharing about that with you. Okay, so that's that one. And then the other thing I'm going to share with you about feedback, are we limiting feedback though? Okay, because it can get so frustrating that you're just like, oh, I'm not going to focus on feedback right now. But we do want to make sure that if we feel feedback is so difficult for us to provide it, we get educated about the art of providing quality feedback to our students. And we can do that through reading blog posts, through learning from sessions such as this one, through reading other books. Anytime that I know I am lacking on an area as an educator, I go find the information that I need. And then, I bring myself up to speed, and I embrace a process, because it sure as heck is a process. But you want to put conscious effort and practice. The other thing, this were the excuses that I gave myself back in the day for not providing feedback. I had too many students. My students don't appreciate it. If feedback is not needed, they're not going to need it. And actually, they really don't need it if you're teaching in a very natural approach, but at the same time, they do need it, because you did receive feedback from your parents when you were growing up learning a language. You were, your parents gave you, when you said something wrong, they might have given you feedback in the form of a recast. Like they said the sentence in the way that you should say it. And the example that I keep giving, that to this day I remember, when I was in 7th grade and I was learning English, I walked around for I don't know how long saying, I don't can homework. I don't can. So, and until someone nicely told me, oh, you mean I cannot, or I can't. And then, but what that person told me that, then I was like, oh, okay, that's not how you say it. Okay, all right, next time I remember. So, and then I did. So that's what I mean by recasting. And then how many times someone provided to you feedback when you were learning your second language, and it actually helped you? Because a lot of people dismiss feedback just like that. And I don't know about you, but in the state where I teach, at the school where I teach, I have certain standards I have to show. And even though some people say, no, you don't need feedback. And no, it is not necessary for acquisition to occur. Okay, it's not. But to meet my state standards and to make everybody happy, I need to be able to provide quality feedback to keep my job. So here I am talking about this. And I do believe that there is value on it genuinely. Okay, so another thing I told myself is too time consuming. We don't have time for this. Okay, but I want to say this: we can, that time consuming, we're going to like totally crush that, because you can give on the spot feedback, you can give self reflections as feedback, you can provide peer evaluations, opportunities as feedback. You can facilitate feedback without making it time consuming at all, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay, so this came from my Instagram, but my people at Instagram did not get to hear me go over it the way I'm going over it with you. They just saw the post and read the post. So if you are on Instagram and you're here, thank you for being here, because you're getting to listen to me explain everything that was behind this post. So let's talk about strategies, because I can talk about feedback all the time, but let's talk about some simple strategies. So I have a strategy, glow and grow. And I actually learned about this strategy for the first time from Megan Butke, who is an amazing educator. Follow her on Twitter if you are on Twitter. She shares a lot of really awesome content. And I saw the glow and grow self-reflection form she provided one time a long time ago. And I said, oh my God, I have to learn from her. And I learned from her about this. And I'm sharing this with you today. I don't know who she learned it from, so I give credit to her. I'm sure she got it from somebody else. But most definitely, I want to give credit where it's due. So glow and grow is actually, it could be so many things. It could be so many things in your classroom. And that's why I love, this is my favorite feedback strategy, because I can apply it in so many ways. So let's look into it. So it's a flexible strategy to provide feedback where you can guide your learners to reflect on their areas of strength and focus towards progress. Okay, you can use glow and grow with any communication mode. It could be interpersonal speaking samples, it could be with written samples, it could be with audio samples, whatever you want. So as I mentioned, I learned this from Megan, so I'm very grateful to her for teaching me about glow and grow. And the way that I use it, after I learned what glow and grow was, the way that I use it in my classroom is I found every single possible way to use it. I used it as a self-reflection, the way that I learned it from Megan. I started doing peer-based glow and grows. I started doing whole class gallery walk style, whole class share out. And just when we went into virtual mode, all of the above, I found a way to make them digital through Jamboard, of course, because, you know, Jamboard is my jam, my best friend. I love it. Okay, so how do we start and how do we set up the glow and grow? And basically, let me just back up for a second. Glow and grow basically means two things. We're going to look at a student sample, okay? Whether that's we're doing it together as a class or me as a teacher, I'm going to project the student sample. We're going to look at a student sample, whether that's a speaking sample or a text sample. We're going to look at it together as a, or however, there's a student sample, right? And from that student sample, I'm going to instruct my students to give one comment that is positive about something wonderful that is happening in that writing piece or in that speaking sample. And they're going to write one comment that is something that that student could have done better through that they did not do, and maybe they could have done, or something that they can grow on. So that's the premise behind glow and grow. Okay, now several things you want to keep in mind. This doesn't just happen magically. This should be like a 3-hour workshop that I'm thinking about doing at a conference nearby, and I'll tell you more about it in the future if I decide this is what I'm going to do. So with glow and grow, we want to make sure that we provide the best feedback possible, and we want to make sure that we empower our students to provide feedback for themselves and for others in a way that is so powerful that everybody's going to grow, and you, my friend, the teacher, are going to save yourself a lot of time. So we want to make sure that we focus the feedback. Remember how I said feedback should be focused? We want to make sure that we focus that feedback. And we want to start by asking ourselves, how do we even begin to set up this activity? We want to start by asking ourselves, okay, what type of feedback do my students need? Let's say that your students just took a written exam. Okay, they had to write a narrative or a summary. Let's just say they had to write a summary of a novel they read. Or maybe they had to write a paper about a prompt you gave them to practice a specific or to, after the end of a unit of a textbook, a chapter. However way you teach, whatever your circumstances are, they had to write a paragraph for you or a paper for you. Okay, you notice that your students were lacking in specific areas. Your students are intermediate students. This is an example. Okay, and you're going to think about 1 to 3 areas to focus on. Before you even allow your students to give each other feedback, you're going to say, guys, well, before that, you're going to glance over your students' papers, and you're going to notice what are the quote unquote errors, because there is no such thing as errors, as we have heard Mr. Bill Van Patten say. They just need more input. They haven't processed that. But let's just say we find errors, and we find some frequent errors, and we want to make sure they focus on that. So, for example, something that I may find lacking amongst my students' writing is that their sentences are very choppy, or maybe they're not taking risk, and their sentences still look like Spanish 1 sentences, and they really need to have more connectors, and they really need to take risk in putting sentences together, okay? And writing maybe some complex sentences. So that might be something I want to focus on. Or maybe your students use a paper and it's like gusta and gustan. Oh my God, it's not correct. It's not correct. Or maybe your adjective and noun placement, if it's not correct, if you are teaching with grammar in your classroom and you're focused in that's an area of focus, okay? So what you are going to pick your 1 to 2 or 3 areas that you want to focus on, and you're going to write those down on the board, or you're going to put them on a slide. But those are your 3 areas of feedback. That way, when you're ready to host a Glow and Grow session, or maybe you give your papers back to your students and you said, okay, guys, I want you to look at your papers, and I want you to find look through your paper and find how many times you use this, or how many, please highlight in blue all the sentences that were compound sentences, or sentences that you use connectors. Highlight those in blue. And, those will be areas of glow, because they created a lot of sentences like that. If they did not have any of those, then that would be a realization. Oh man, I need to step up my game, because I need to have those types of sentences. So that's just an example of how that would look in the classroom. Why is this important? Well, feedback is important because it provides a clear and stress-free path. Focus feedback is important because it provides a clear and stress-free path. Because if you just give your students the papers and just say, give each other feedback, it's going to be a fail. It's going to be a fail, and you're not going to be happy. And you're going to be like, Delgadillo, what the heck were you talking about? This did not work for my students. Okay, there's stuff that needs to happen before you get there, my friend. Okay, so when you focus the feedback with the purpose of coaching learners to provide feedback for themselves and others, you are empowering every single learner to be able to do it and to have a voice in the classroom. Not to mention, they're becoming more reflective and independent learners. Okay, as an adult, you kind of have an idea of how to teach yourself another language if you wanted to. And you can we are capable of providing ourselves feedback, but we need to know what the criteria is. Same for our students. Okay, so you want to make sure you provide structure, and this is just an example of how I provide structure for my students. And this is the Glow and Grow approach. This is going to be on a slide, and I can ask them. I have in here in the middle. I list in the middle what are we focusing on? Using simple sentences and some strings of sentences. So I give them their paper back, and then they look at their paper, and then they might be able to tell me if they glow on that area, or if they need to grow on that area, and why. Okay, so it's very, very guided. And also, so I can give them their paper back, and they can write on a paper where did they glow and where can they grow. Or I can give them their papers and say, switch with a partner and give yourself Glow and Grow feedback. Or I can post papers around the room for each of the students, and I can give them sticky notes, and they can just go around the room and provide feedback to each other that way, using this method. So this is very, very easy to do in the classroom. We can make it peer-based, like I mentioned. They can switch the paper. And then I'm going to share with you now some ways in which you can adapt this with technology. And believe it or not, this is another reason why I love Jamboard, because I know that it's here to stay, and it's going to be in my classroom even next year, because sometimes Some of us, we still can't pass out papers. I know some teachers who are still, even though they're in the classroom, they can't be using actual documents and things of that nature. So in some way, you will be able to use Jamboard as well as we move until next year. So several things before I actually show you the examples. Some final considerations that we want to make sure we have with our students. We want to coach our students to frame all glow and grow comments in a positive way. So they're not going to say, oh, you forgot to do this. You can say the writing lacked. So you are directing. You need to make sure that you teach your students how to write in a positive way. They can say something that the paper was missing, but in a positive way. And they have to target the task, not the student. Okay, we want to make sure and that's actually social emotional learning embedded into your curriculum right there. Okay, when coaching the whole class, if you're going to look at one sample, okay, and the whole class is going to look at one sample, always ask permission to the student who you're going to be using as a volunteer to give feedback. And the way that I do it is I look at my student and I said, Sandra, do I have your permission to give you the best feedback possible I can give you? I mean, I'm just telling you, like, you're going to get the best feedback ever if you say yes. And then she's going to say, yes, ma'am. And then I can use Sandra's work with her permission. That way she's not going to feel like I'm overstepping and I'm just exposing her, whether it's good or bad. The other thing, you do not only want to look at the best work for feedback. You want to get some examples that are not great, some that are terrible as well. You do have to be careful on how you frame the feedback when the example is not good, but everybody learns so much from that. So don't only focus on the students who are like the stellars. Everybody gets to be a part of this. Coaches students to target, okay, I already talked about that, and coaches students to be as specific as possible with the comments. If they say a statement, okay, why? We don't just leave it at that. Okay, so those are some considerations as well. And then let me share with you some actual examples. Okay, so my favorite feedback strategy is called La Silla Caliente, the hot seat, which you probably already heard of, but probably have not given feedback this way. Maybe yes, maybe not. I don't know. But La Silla Caliente is actually you put a person on the hot seat. And I love this strategy because it's a whole class feedback strategy. So first, we get a student volunteer. So for example, AP teachers, I do this with AP a lot. I use and abuse this strategy with AP a ton. And it saves me time from giving my students written feedback. And I will say that the feedback they get through this activity is much better than the feedback they would get written. Not that the feedback is better, it's just that they take it in a much more powerful way than if I were writing it down on their paper. And that way, they don't have to wait for me 1 or 2 days to get their papers back. It happens right there and right then. So the first thing you do is you ask for a volunteer. If you don't have a volunteer, you pick a student and you send them a private message if they're virtual, or you ask them through the mic and you say, do I have your permission? And more than likely, my students always say yes, but if you have issues with that, you can offer extra points on a grade or something, like a few extra points, or you can private message and say, you know what, the class would learn a lot from looking at your sample, just work in getting those students to say yes and volunteer. Okay, so the student says yes, you get a volunteer. So let's say we're looking at a speaking sample. Let's talk about AP class, and we're looking at a speaking sample, but this strategy should not be happening only on AP. The strategy should be happening everywhere, in every class, level 1, all the way up, okay? So we have our volunteer sample. We're gonna look at Daniel's sample. Daniel's gonna give me a speaking sample of 2 minutes, okay? And then secondly, we're going to share the work with the whole class. So once Daniel says, yes, you can have my sample and play it for the whole class, I'm going to play it. The whole class is going to listen to him speak. And then after that, third, all the students are going to be given the opportunity to provide strengths and weaknesses on that sample. Now, If we did not talk about AP rubrics, or if we did not talk about criteria, task criteria, if it's not an AP class, if you did not talk about criteria, this part right here is going to lack. If you did not talk about proficiency and the performance indicators, this task right here is going to be difficult for you to carry out in your classroom. If your students have no expectation about that, that's why I encourage you, if you don't talk to your students about proficiency, you talk to them. I have a unit in my TPT store about this that you're welcome to go check out, that can be used with pretty much any class, any subject, any language. But yes, so you want to make sure that your students are aware. So in this particular sample, it's a speaking sample for AP class, and you play it, and then the students are going to give that student feedback. Now, by this point in my class, my students are very familiar of what the expectations are for the AP performance. Okay, so they're pretty clear with that. Then again, fourth, after everybody has finished giving them their feedback and I've discussed everybody's feedback, then I get to give feedback. Then I get to fill in the gaps. And everybody's listening, and everybody's participating, and everybody is giving feedback to that one student, but yet everybody's benefiting from it. And then fifth, we celebrate all the way. We celebrate with reactions on the Zoom meeting. We celebrate clapping. We celebrate all the way about that student's job. Doesn't matter if the score was low, we celebrate it. Okay, so just thanking them. So I love this activity because it puts all the students at the center, not just the volunteer student. The students receive rich feedback from everybody, and it really builds community, and it does what feedback is supposed to do, which is be provided timely, and it's actionable. And also the students find more, they appreciate that feedback more because it comes from their peers. It doesn't come from the teacher, and they love us. They love her. The students love you, okay? But they listen better to their peers than how they listen to us. That's just the honest truth, okay? And then number 5, it saves you a ton of time, okay? So this is what it looks like finished. So this was a sample from one of my students, and these are some of the areas in which she did well. Her introduction was great, says one of the students. Integrated a variety of vocabulary, talked about 2 different cultures. It was evident. She had a lot of pauses, so that's something that she needs to work on, that she did pause, but she had too many of those. Then she talked for more time than necessary, because, in the AP, they're only supposed to talk for 2 minutes for the cultural comparison task. So here's the areas in which they shine, and here's the areas in which they need to grow. So all of the students use Jamboard, or they can do this in Google Slides too, okay? And they put in their areas of glow, and then their areas of growth, grow. Okay, that's what a glow and grow collaborative as a class looks like. Okay, and then after that, the students will write in here. They will write, so here are the instructions, here's what they do. After all the students give their feedback, you give the feedback. If you see there's feedback that needs to be given, you fill in the gaps of what the students didn't say. And sometimes I even tell my students, I see 2 things you guys haven't pointed out yet. Do you know what those are? And then I have them try to brainstorm and try to find. And as long as they're focusing on that sample, it's all good. They're giving me a lot of really great feedback. Then finally, feedback that I need to remember. So here's another board with the student. Every single student, even though it was only 1 student who received the feedback, every single one of them at the end of the session has to type or put a little sticky note in the last slide to tell me what feedback they are taking away for themselves as a result of this session. This activity can last 20 minutes. This activity can last 5 minutes. It's as long as you want it to be. Okay, it could be as long as you want it to be. So that's one activity to save you time with feedback. And then I have another very quick trick that I want to share with you. You can find in my blog, I have a whole blog post about it, how to provide effective feedback when you have a ton of students. It has pretty much everything I just broke down for you and more. So you might want to go check through that blog post. And if you want to get the templates for La Silla Caliente in Spanish, I only have these available in Spanish at the time being. They are in my TPT store as well. Okay, so there is one more activity I want to share with you. And you don't have to get my templates from TPT. Okay, you totally don't have to. You can set this up yourself. I'm telling you how. And if you want to save some time, you can go get my templates. But if not, I don't, it's okay. I get it. I love it when you support my work. It means a lot to me, but I understand. And, if you're just blessed with the knowledge and you want to try it yourself and set it up yourself, that's completely okay too. All right, so here's the other activity I want to share with you today. This next one is an interpersonal text conversation, okay? In this particular one, you are able to see and give feedback immediately to your students. So here's an example of what that looks like. You are going to set up a conversation. So in the blue, you, the teacher, you're going to type a conversation, okay? And the gray, it's going to stay blank. That's the part where the students are going to respond. This is set up like the simulated conversation of the AP test. But again, dear friends, this is not only for AP. AP training starts at level 1. AP task, AP thinking needs to start at level 1. So if you teach level 1, I highly encourage you, if you haven't, to try these activities in your class. So in this particular one, here's the scenario. So this is perfect. This is a perfect assessment at the end of a unit. So once you're closing a unit on a specific topic or on a specific novel, however you teach, whatever your teaching approach, you can create a conversation where your students have to respond based on whatever topics you were talking about. And then your students have to respond, and you can give them an outline. I use the sticky notes on the side to tell them what to do, just like in the AP test. Answer negatively and ask a question. Based on what this person said, answer negatively and ask a question. That's what it says right here. Based on what this person responded, now you had to give your opinion and ask for more details. Now over here, so this right here, the little sticky notes are for you to give specific instructions of what you want your students to respond, how you want them to respond, okay? Some people are against this, and that's totally up to you. But the reason why I do these activities with my level 2s and with my level 3s is because I am training my students for AP. I have to grow my AP program because people are on me about growing my AP program every year. So that's the reason why I promote these activities for lower levels. So you, in this particular activity, the students are going to respond. As you can see in here, they already responded. And once they respond, I said, okay, I want you to do a self-reflection, and I want you to type on the sides a glow and grow feedback for yourself. And my students understand what I mean when I say that. So this is what the student said. I think that I responded well with everything that was asked in the notes, meaning in the sticky notes. So that means he followed all the instructions. And then on the girl, he said, I need more sophisticated words. Okay, which is true. The student does need a little bit more of that. Okay, so this shows me their awareness of do they know what they need to do? And if they do, how are you planning? The conversation is not anymore, oh, this is what you're lacking. No, you know exactly what you're lacking, but please tell me how you're going to get to the next level. What's your plan? And if that student doesn't have a plan, that's where I step in. This conversation is not about, oh, I got a 97. What do I need to do? I need to try again, do a 93. No. Like, we have a plan of action here. Now, after they give each other feedback, they give themselves feedback. I can say, go find another friend. It could be a collective document in Google, and we can watch it in grid view. And I can say, go find another friend and go, that's finished, and post some glow and grow feedback on their feed. And they do that. And they give each other feedback in there while they're working. And then at the end, I provide the feedback as well. And I give them some more actionable stuff. So in this particular example, I said, utilize the resources to expand your vocabulary. What I mean by resources is the scaffolds I provide for them. And I also say, for example, you use the word I think in many occasions. And you saw that I highlighted that in there. He used I think 3 times. You will be able to variate this form if you can say I believe, or in my opinion, etc. So that was kind of like a little pointer I gave him to kind of be a little bit more aware of that. Okay, here's what grid view looks like. If you're doing this on Jamboard, on the top, you can just scroll and you don't need a grid view. okay? But if you're a Google Slides person, you can go to view, grid view, and then it will look like this, and you'll be able to see which students working where, and you can see how the students are moving throughout the presentation. It's beautiful. If you have not done grid view on Google Slides, I highly encourage you to do that. And so again, here's another example done by another student, and here's my grow and glow comments that I give to them. Here's their own self-assessment comments. And again, I am doing this during class, saving myself time, and they are taking and absorbing that feedback in a way that I wouldn't be able to have had them take and absorb had I taken the papers home, taken 2 or 3 days to give them back to them. It's happening right there at the moment, and the students are changing the answers right on the spot. So this strategy is powerful. Again, I learned about the strategy from Megan Butke, the actual glow and grow strategy. Now, how to put it in an interpersonal conversation, my friend Claudia Elliott was the one who taught me this. So I want to give credit where credit is due as far as that. So you can also get this activity. I have a template, and this one is actually editable, so you can edit for any language. And basically, this would be just the first slide. What I put on my first slide, I put screenshot of whatever scaffolds I want to provide my students. So the first slide is for you to either brain dump with your students phrases that are going to be useful together. You can co-create your support structures on the first slide and put them all in there. And then here you will put a prompt for your students. What is the scenario? What is the situation? And then in here, you're going to put the conversation, okay? So I created this ones for my classroom because I like to change the topics all the time, and I don't want to recreate the wheel. So I just have templates that I can switch up and use. I'm all about the practical. So again, you can also find this inside my TPT store, but you can do this again without having to go buy anything from me. You can set it up yourself as well. And you already have the idea and you already know what you need to do. So those are the 2 ideas I wanted to share with you today. I hope that this session has been useful to you today. And I hope that you have learned a ton. I don't see any comments at all in any of the, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a ton of comments. I'm pretty sure once I get out and once I close this and I go to the actual Facebook communities, there are going to be a ton of comments in there. But right now, if I did not answer your question, is because I don't see any comments. Okay, I see, oh, okay, I see some. I agree. Before the feedback, tell them estamos en familia and make it excellent, personable. Somebody said at some point, love the term glow and grow, and yes, very helpful. So again, please, I just want to encourage you to, let me take this and remove this. Okay, I just want to encourage you to try this. If you haven't tried this with your students, absolutely try it. Try it right now before the end of the year if you can, because if you get my templates, you don't have to do any work. You have to do very little work to get these activities in your classroom. So try this so that next year you have that confidence to provide and facilitate feedback at another level. I will be sharing more about feedback later on. Am I going to share? The templates are actually on my TPT store. Okay, so today I share the knowledge. You can get the templates in my TPT store if you would like, or you can actually, you don't need templates. You can just set up a T-chart on your Jam and you can have your students just join you. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I will see you soon again. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I will be sharing with you resources for Cinco de Mayo again tomorrow in the morning via email. You're going to get some new resources from me. If you are already subscribed to my email, then if not, just drop me a message and I will make sure you get in that mailing list so that I can give this freebies to you, the Cinco de Mayo resources. And yes, so you guys have a wonderful evening. Nos vemos. Hasta pronto.